Hey movie geeks, I hope you're having a good day. Thanks to channel member John Eastwood for this request. It's time to take a look back at John Wayne's 1966 classic western, El Dorado, also starring Robert Mitchum and directed by Howard Hawks. El Dorado is famous for being in fact a remake of Hawks' immortal 1959 western, Rio Bravo. He decided to return to the same story, very similar characters, but with a fresh new take and shake up with the cast. Let's take an in-depth look back at El Dorado, but how about we start off first by listing the similarities between the film and Rio Bravo, because it's fascinating and fun, and Hawks managed to remake one of his best films and have it be just as good, if not better, in some areas. In both films, John Wayne plays a lawman who is tasked with defending a town against a group of outlaws. In Rio Bravo, Wayne plays Sheriff John T. Chance, and in El Dorado, he plays Cole Thornton, a gunfighter who is hired by a wealthy rancher to take control of a town, but he soon switches sides to help the town's sheriff against the rancher's men. Wayne's character is aided in both films by a drunken partner. In Rio Bravo, it's a deputy played by Dean Martin, and in El Dorado, it's an alcoholic sheriff named J.P. Harrah, and he's played by Robert Mitchum. In Rio Bravo, Ricky Nelson plays a young gunslinger named Colorado who helps the two, and in El Dorado, the youngster is called Mississippi and is portrayed by James Caan. A jolly comic relief character named Stumpy is played by Walter Brennan in Rio Bravo, and in El Dorado, Arthur Honeycutt plays the equivalent character named Bull. Both films also include an old flame of John Wayne's character. In Rio Bravo, it's Angie Dickinson as Feathers, and in El Dorado, Charlene Holt plays Mardy. Both westerns explore similar themes such as loyalty, redemption, and the importance of standing up for what's right. However, while there are huge similarities and the basic plot is the same, for me there are some pretty stark differences between El Dorado and Rio Bravo, and I must say some of these actually are leading me on some level to prefer El Dorado to Rio Bravo, and that's saying a lot as Rio Bravo is one of my favourite westerns. Unlike many of his other films, El Dorado no longer presents John Wayne as a superhero. He is vulnerable, and even shows himself to be weak and very beatable in moments. I actually have huge respect for Wayne for basically having his character suffer the effects of aging and his body breaking down on screen. Lots of the action heroes since would never allow that to be put out there, so I take my hat off to the Duke, and it gives a new dimension to his character. The film feels more real, more honest, and the stakes feel higher. Thornton is suffering from a bad back. He is slower, more mentally drained, and even gets shot in the leg and has to walk with a crutch later on in the film. El Dorado was quite ambitious and poignant in its approach, and perhaps that was because behind the scenes John Wayne and Howard Hawks were both grappling with the reality of aging. We spent so many films seeing John Wayne as the hero, but by the time El Dorado rolled around, he's no longer a hero, but a survivor. It's refreshing to see a different approach to his legendary masculine persona, and his performance feels genuine because Wayne felt like he was at a point in his life where he wanted to be more honest in his movies, as he was entering the twilight of his career. It definitely feels like a big deal to see John Wayne and Robert Mitchum going back and forth. It's two of the greatest, two actors worthy of real respect. The movie is again poignant and has a sense of finality, because you're not watching Wayne and Mitchum in their prime, running around having fun. You're watching them confronting do-or-die situations, serious subjects such as whether they can still do it, and whether they can make sure they don't get left behind by a rapidly changing world. Hell, the character of Thornton even takes shortcuts in the film and does all he can to cling on to his legacy, as there are faster guns out there that are, in his words, too good.
You didn't give me any chance at all, did you?
No, I didn't. You're too good to give a chance to.
Yeah.
Robert Mitchum is excellent as Harrah. His performance differs from Dean Martin's in a sense that it's more physical and all-encompassing, and your heart perhaps goes out to him a bit more than it did to Martin, because Mitchum really plays up the tragedy of being an alcoholic.
Cole, they laughed at me. Right in front of a cloud, they just laughed at me.
I've been laughing at you for a couple of months.
Thornton and Harrah have a complicated history that is gradually revealed as the film goes on. The tense atmosphere between the two is so well delivered, and the more we find out, the more this relationship is an example of old friends leaving open wounds never discussed, until it ends up rising to the surface and causing issues. Their friendship shows the problem with the male ego and a desire to always be the best, at the detriment of those around you. But of course Howard Hawks has his memory gain their friendship and loyalty through going through a difficult situation together. Hawks made a habit of having a problem the characters solve together under pressure, and usually the threat of death, actually being their therapy. This is a film about experience, working together, and having faith in people, and learning from the past. While no one can match how cool Ricky Nelson was in Rio Bravo, James Caan is still pretty darn good as the cocky youngster, Mississippi, who makes a huge impact from the first time he appears, in a memorable scene where he confronts the killer of a friend of his.
Well, I'm sure glad you remember Mr. Higgin. The other three did.
The other three?
Yeah. I caught up with them. You're the last.
He shows up with revenge on his mind, and it means something. Death is discussed and taken a bit more seriously here than it was in Rio Bravo. It hits hard whenever someone is killed. Caan has some great chemistry with Wayne and basically annoys him for the first half of the film, but he slowly gains his respect with his sense of humour and bravery. Mississippi really looks up to Thornton, and it's a great student-mentor relationship where we see a perfect example of the young trying to prove themselves to the old, and the old having pretty high standards and not always willing to accept them until they have impressed them to their satisfaction. Arthur Honeycutt may have been this movie's version of Stumpy, but he ends up being a lot more serious than Rio Bravo's energetic sidekick. Deputy Bull is actually a complex character. He's tough and gruff on the outside, but he's also fiercely loyal to his friends and family. Bull proves himself to be a useful ally, using his knowledge of the land to be a worthy addition. Out of all the characters, this is probably the one who is most different to his counterpart in Rio Bravo. Bull can hold his own as much as the others, and although I miss Stumpy's unpredictable fun energy, it's nice to see a more competent version. But at the same time, he's still one who is reacting to everything, so we still get moments of him being genuinely bewildered, the same way Stumpy was. At a time where women were often overlooked, the female characters in El Dorado were pretty darn good. Josephine, for example, the only daughter of the McDonalds, is such a tough character. She's a force to be reckoned with, and it's impressive that in this movie John Wayne actually allows a woman to take him down, which I never thought I'd see, and it's quite a fun moment. He does manage to get in a snarky line after it happens.
Next time you shoot somebody, don't go near them till you're sure they're dead.
It's refreshing to see a woman carry herself with the men of the time, and actress Michelle Carey puts in a performance of such conviction and feeling. This is a woman who will stand up for herself and her family, and will take the same measures as the men around her to do so. Charlene Holt is great as Mardy. She has an unfulfilled romance with Thornton, but unlike Angie Dickinson's character in Rio Bravo, Thornton actually seems to respect her, and it feels like a genuine human relationship between them, where they both do actually care about the other. This was a great development for John Wayne's relationships on camera, as the women were usually shown chasing after him. Here, you don't get the feeling that Mardy actually needs Thornton. You get the impression he's the one who actually needs her. El Dorado has a slightly faster pace than Rio Bravo. Rio Bravo is a really cozy film that gradually unfolds, whereas El Dorado has an edginess that means you can't really look away. Rio Bravo is a Sunday afternoon film, but El Dorado is a Friday night. The shootout scenes are wonderful and very exciting. For example, the confrontation in the church is great because it's such a good setting, and the scene is so chaotic and fast paced, and it's so memorable to hear those bells ring as all hell is breaking loose. As the film gets closer to the end, there's a harder edge to the shootouts. It's quite uncompromising when Hawks shows us Thornton torturing his enemy by shooting the ground and area around him. This is quite aggressive for John Wayne, and of course the character ends up being shot to bits when he makes it out the door. And then Hawks continues to play with your expectations even more when straight after Thornton collapses in pain, showing us the Duke, the king of the westerns, the most vulnerable we have ever seen him. It's these little unpredictable moments that make El Dorado stand out quite a bit from Rio Bravo, and although they're only small moments, they create stark differences between the two movies. El Dorado is a wonderful western. It stands out from others because you actually feel like our characters could die. It's honest and thought-provoking, and deals with themes such as the passing of time and the deterioration of the male archetype with age. Of course, it was also pretty progressive for the time period, as we see Josephine right there at the end in the finale as part of the heroes, and of course Marty is more than just a woman waiting around for Thornton. Overall, I honestly can't decide what I prefer out of Rio Bravo and El Dorado. I've seen Rio Bravo more, so have a real soft spot for it. It's one of the greatest westerns of all time, but I feel like El Dorado might get better and better for me the more I watch it. It feels like the mature older brother of Rio Bravo. So if I feel like relaxing, I'll watch Rio Bravo. If I want to watch something riveting and uncompromising, I'll check out El Dorado again. Thanks so much to channel member John Eastwood who requested I review this film. If you're interested in the many perks and possibilities of becoming a channel member, please consider clicking that join button and donating a small amount each month. Click on my analysis of Rio Bravo on the screen now. It was one of the first videos I ever did on this channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.